Well, hi there, it's Paulie here. With my friend Mr. Snoots. It is winter, he has his blankie on. Me. The heater is off to stop background noise. That's how much I love you people. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about a game that has been sent to me by the designer, Sickest. And before I begin, alright, Justin, the designer, I love you, oh fellow creator, and I do really respect what you've done here. But for this review, I have to give you a warning because this game covers a lot of horror themes, including dismemberments, gutting, murder, blood draining, maggots. You bet it. So, I'm going to get my tea, and if any of that stuff is not what you want to hear today, you've got until I start drinking it to leave the room. Alright, haha. Masala chai, the one true addiction you'll come back from India with. Boy. Anywho. So, this is essentially a game that uses an old school rules core mechanic. So, the designer's not trying to break your head with inventing 1001 new mechanics and impressing you with their, dice agility, because they want you to experience the game. Every game is an emotional journey, and oh my god, is this one an emotional journey. Like I said, Justin, oh fellow creator, I love and respect you, and I really hope everything's alright at home. No, I get it. This is a game born of the horrors of 2025. Alright? This is a game about poor people fighting against authority. This is a game of essentially having to almost use the weapons of the enemy to overcome them. This is the little guy fighting the big guy and literally paddling in their guts as you do it. There is that sense of you are actually fighting for the hopeless against those people who preyed upon them in a very medieval, witchy, Caledonian kind of setting. So, the setting, it's kind of, in essence, I feel, your mileage may vary if you're American, but to me this feels like something inspired by a little scrap of kind of a wasteland Scotland. Very small environment they've covered. They don't have to do a whole world because we're not adventuring in a whole world. We're adventuring in the bits that we can walk to. So, they've fleshed out a place with its villages, the character of those villages, a whole setting comes with this, and the somewhat horrible society and setting of this. It's a medieval society. There's a king and royal family who have a fairly modest castle in one of the towns. There are barons who overlord these different villages and completely abuse the peasants. Literally, you're flogged into the fields. If you don't deliver your taxes, your hands are cut off, or you're hung and drawn and quartered. They rape, they brutalize, whatever is necessary to just keep the peasants broken. It keeps going back to these people are just broken. You just work till you break, and that's okay because life's cheap, and you've just bred more replacements for yourself. You can see where this is born from. And that's why, ooky as it is, I think, if you'll pardon the pun, the game has good bones. In the background, essentially, someone discovered magical powers, witch-style powers. These aren't Dungeons and Dragons, I point my finger and a lightning bolt, blows 91 guys up powers. But, in this kind of fairly realistic setting, yeah, they are spooky and terrifying and incredibly useful for, taking out that guy that's flogging your brother with a whip. But this all comes off severed body parts. There's a thing called black salt, and if you kind of take a severed body part from someone who is recently dead, like within a day, and you imbue them with these salts, you can then imbue them with magic and they can be used to cast a spell. Someone did this, cut the hand off a dead overseer and found that they could begin casting magic. Now, a generation or so later, this small area, this little village, that you are in is rife with witches, and authority people view it with abject terror. They don't go near it, they have tried, but you are filtering out into the world. So that's your basis. You will form, as your group of characters, you will form a coven of witches. You can call them other things if you want. You can conceive of yourself as a warlock, a sorcerer, you know, a necromancer, whatever, but they are witches. So, like many OSR games, it will use a 3d6 system for generating characteristics, or this game calls them oracles. They are basically a way of getting bonuses on different dice rolls. It does not use the usual, you know, strength, intelligence, dexterity, etc. It splits them into 5 characteristics, and they are things like, you know, fist, which is, you know, how strong you are. There's things like flesh, which is sort of how tough and robust you are. Down at the end there is one called cauldron, and that is essentially your magical power, your magical bonuses. As a individual, you will pick a class, but your group, your coven, also kind of gather together and have some things that you will do mutually. One of those is the group's cauldron. This is a game that obviously magic is at its core, and this whole cauldron concept becomes pretty core to it. But you roll 3d6, and these different oracles, characteristics, will give you different bonuses to different type of challenge rolls that you've got to make. You'll be rolling a d20, trying to score high. Bonuses from these oracles, these characteristics, will add to your dice roll and make passing different tasks and challenges easier. The game itself, like if you're doing the actual dice rolling part, as I said, d20 roll high versus a difficulty level. So good, simple characteristics. Now, I do have to say that the book is not for beginners. It has been written very clearly, completely assuming that you have played a lot of these games. So it will suddenly introduce you to ideas like advantage or disadvantage on dice rolls, which is to say, if you have an advantage, you roll twice and take the best. If you have disadvantage, you roll twice and take the lower. So if you were absolutely fresh to role-playing games, that might be a bit of under risk because the concepts aren't kind of separated off or put in a side text to, you know, really give you a grip. Combat-wise, this is where the variance from like original D&D and so on comes in, because you as a player-driven character, one of the sick, more on that later, you roll to hit, obviously, but in order to avoid being hit by an enemy, the player will have to roll to dodge. So the umpire running the game is not rolling to hit you. You are rolling to avoid damage in a fight. I always find this interesting because it makes for a harsher world. It makes for a grimmer world, because the umpire can't pull any punches. You are physically rolling on the table to see if you avoid damage, and then effectively you roll the damage as a player in the game, as opposed to the umpire who's, oh, these people are getting a bit beaten around. Oh yeah, the enemies all magically miss. So, you know, it is grimmer. The other neat thing is that there is a system, instead of armor making it more difficult to hit, you know, as was the old 1970s D&D idea, which was never great, but what the hell, somehow it survived. This is a game where armor absorbs damage. You wear different pieces of armor, you know, helmets, leather jerkins, mail, carry shields, etc. And they have a set amount of damage that they absorb. Once they take that damage, however, they will not absorb anything more until they are repaired. So if you've got a helmet that does protects for 4 damage, and you've got a leather jerkin that protects for, you know, another 4. If you take 4 points of damage, you know, you choose the leather vest, or the helmet is broken, and you don't get to use their armor protection again until you've been able to sit down and repair them. Some things you can just repair around the campfire for an evening. Other things are more complex, and you are going to need to find your local blacksmith. But so there's your resource management as you go kind of deeper into something and your armor protection is wearing away. You have to start thinking about, am I going to push this? Are we going to do more fights, or should we withdraw and see about repairing gear and tooling up again before continuing on? So, that is actually a clever thing. So the game very much specializes that they're not grimdark, as in this is not designed to be hopeless, that this is not designed to be a thing where just everything's hopeless, you're going to die, you can't fight authority. It is very, very clear that this is about fighting authority, and you can win. So it's not just about a slow grind to failure and doom. Which is great, fantastic, I love the idea. So there is also kind of a neat thing about sharing resources. So what happens is there is a magic system, which we'll go into a bit, but you have essentially magical mana points, power points that it costs to cast spells. But what happens is the party shares these as a resource. So everyone's total magic points are put into your cauldron, which is your collective power to draw from. So one person might be burning through a lot of the party's power. You have to become quite cooperative about how you do it. So something that's been has little echoes of Shadow Dark is trying to keep track of lighting and so on in dark places at night, in caves and whatever. Hasn't quite taken the conceit of real time for that, where a torch lasts for 1 real hour, but they are sort of asking you to keep an eye on things, and if player characters seem to be squandering time, like arguing amongst themselves or obsessively searching things, to deduct time from the length these things burn. This is a game there's some very quite crisp rules for encumbrance and so forth. You can only carry a number of items equal to your fist, your strength. So you ain't going to be carrying a massive equipment list. You're going to have to use those items carefully, and that does include lugging 500 torches around. Great, fantastic. So there's our bases. Now we get into the interesting stuff. And here's where I cover Mr. Snoots' ears, for he's an innocent creature. And here's where I drink. I'm not allowed to drink alcohol anymore. Oh my god. But, because here's the ookie stuff. Oh my god. So, this is not a game for kids, and this is not a game for the faint of heart, and this is definitely not a game for anyone who's squeamish, or maybe just not in the mood for massive bloodshed, because this is a game about killing people and harvesting their organs. Magic works through severed chunks of people. You have different spells. They are linked to different body parts. In order to cast a spell, you need to have that body part that you have pre-prepared by taking it, soaking it in this black salt, which is a process which takes some time, so you have to pre-prepare these things. So this is the severed hand that does this particular spell. You have like an equipment belt on you which has got pouches for all these sawn off chunks of people. But this includes brains, livers, kidneys, hearts, severed hands, severed feet, eyeballs. As you cast a spell, there is a chance that the part will wither and then not be usable to you. And to cast a magic spell, you actually have to make a roll against the difficulty. The higher the spell, the more difficult it is. If you roll a 1, then the body part you've been using also withers. So you're gonna need to constantly harvest more body parts. So like the pictures, the artwork in this is beautiful. It's really nicely presented, but there's lots of kind of, nice young ladies in witches' hats with gutting knives. And you can't just kill any old person. Ideally, they have to be like, evil. But in the thing when where you're running around tearing people's livers out for fun, the line between good and evil is kind of slightly blurred. But oh my god, character classes. So there are different sorts of witches and so on. So one of them is the seducer. So if you're a witch, each of these classes has got powers and bonuses and things they can do. The seducer can seduce people, in which case they kind of fall under their spell, and that can be they run around and cooperate for you, or you just seduce them and they'll just, you seduce this one and now their guard's down. You can just kill them and harvest their organs. Or if it's really good, they'll just kill themselves and offer their organs to you. Oh my god. There's fighters and there's scouts and there's rangers, and so that covers a wide range of these people, each with their own thing. There's a fighter class. One of the things you can do is smash up people's skulls and brains and smear this all over your weapons, and that gives the weapon magical bonuses. And no, not allowed to drink. No, absolutely not. There are a few non-magical classes. They are not sort of magical coven sorts, which include, fighter classes, the butcher, and all this sort of stuff, and lots of lovely artwork. People, executioners' heads, and masks, and oh my god, beautiful artwork. But it's like this is kind of a Salem witch trial. Scottish witch burnie kind of, oh my god, you can imagine the world and the sort of geist you're in, and this rolls over into the things you're going to face. It's lovely. As an example of world building, this is beautiful because it's so damn horrifying. It's not like someone throwing random bits of colour at a canvas. There's been a vision behind this, and the vision's very clear. So as you get into like random encounters and so on, there'll just be things like, here's a circle of deers with their heads cut off, all the bleeding necks, facing inwards, and just left in the middle of the forest. Covens and so on mark their positions with these poles with like a decaying organ stuck on top. You might find some sort of creature. What is this? This is a wolf with its head severed off and a giant eye sort of where the neck hole is. This is a thing about maggots and bursting organs and these horrifying things. There's another creature you can find. It's a snarl of like human tangled hair that's got like human teeth in the middle of it. Swarms of these flying around. It is horrific. And so this is a very kind of arresting game. If your idea of witches and whatever is like, here's the naughtiest witch at school, it's like, this game definitely isn't for you. You can see the influence of things like, Morkborgs and so on in there, but whereas Morkborgs are desolate and hopeless, this one, at least you're fighting for something, and, death is not predetermined. Extensive spell list, of course, and these are all, have the organs that they're tied to. You can cast spells, by the way, they have a level. If you cast a spell against something that is of a higher experience level than the spell, then the damage and the effects that the spell causes are halved. So you want to, lower magics, really asymptote off their combat abilities against more powerful things. They split combat into like regular fights, and they give you slightly more detailed version of events for boss fights. Boss fights, I like that. But combat is actually of limited duration. So when you fight someone, your foes will stay around for a while, depending on their level and your level. The higher the level they are, the longer they will hang around. But at the end of that number of levels, the fight is over, and one or the other side is going to do a runner and withdraw. So these aren't these traditional slugfests where everyone just hangs around till they're dead. No one does that. So essentially, if you're fighting a bunch of guards or whatever, and you do seem to be winning it. After a set number of rounds, the survivors will take off. But on the other hand, if you're fighting some huge hideous thing after a set number of rounds and you haven't taken it down, you will go. It's like, nope, you're going to need a better plan than just hitting it with pointed sticks. And boss fights, however, can be more, to the death. You can make potions and so on, of course. There's all this witchy sort of thing. Your characters each day can look for herbs. It's probably a very bad idea because it's rolled on a random chart, and of course there's a substantial chance that what you found is actually going to poison you, but that's okay, because if someone's got the spell around that stops poison, then that's fine. But if you keep doing that, then the severed nutsack or whatever that you're using to cast those spells is going to wither, and now you're going to have to go around and collect another one. Ching, 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 ching. So yes, you are constantly stalking enemies and tearing out their sodding livers. Now, the artwork and everything, as I said, is very, very beautiful. I can see, I was only given a PDF, but I can see the concept of the book is to make the book into an art piece. And the thing that a lot of page layout artists forget is, of course, that a book is a three-dimensional piece of work. The outsides of the pages are more clear than the insides. Pages reflect each other, etc. So here's a cute little thing that I did see. No gin. Wrong. No gin. Mr. Snoots will bite you. Organ harvesting. Random organ harvesting. Yes, if you take someone down. Hey, let's go get those organs. God. You take the book and kind of open it, so there's that curve down into the spine, and you roll 3 dice into that space, so they end up as a column, one above each other, lying in the valley of the book. And 2 people can be sort of harvesting from this corpse. You can look on the left side and the right side, one he takes left and one he takes right, and what is scored on each of these dice, if you're doing this on the right page of the book, the actual harvestable organs on this victim are laid out on the pages on either side, so it tells you what you can kind of gouge out of someone. A great use of the medium. Why the organs? Oh, all right, anyway. Another cute concept actually in this is you can see they're trying to build a online community. What you can do is you can take items that you find and you can put them in your cauldron. And what this means is that essentially if you are on some kind of online forum where you're playing with other people can essentially ask to use something that you've put up on the forum as in your cauldron. They can borrow it and use it, and ideally bring it back, but it's kind of tracked between you using whatever system you guys want to use. But the idea is you're all kind of different covens operating somewhere in this world, or allied worlds, or what have you. You can pass items back and forth between you. An interesting idea. So the language and everything used, so the powers that be kind of just refer to all the scungy peasants, or they're just the sick, and anything that uses magic and this organ harvesting, they're the sickest, which is where the title Sickest Witch comes from. They're just despised. So this is this kind of grungy world of these despised, downbeaten peasants with this overlord class smashing them down. And then somewhere off on the far side of this, you've got this one community that has found this, fairly horrifying set of powers, and they're using it to start to stalk these people down and do things. There are other magics and so on around that do not use the whole organ harvesting, but that's not for you. That's only opponents. Some of these royal and regal types, obviously might have access to, high and regal magics. They've got a royal wizard that can cast things, or, the royal sorceress that can do stuff, and they obviously learn that by reading 500 books and, probably experimenting on frying more peasants, because these people are horrible. So But that's not for you. You are the ones who are out there chopping bits off of people and using them to sort of fight back. The book has, as well as a really nice setting, it's also got adventures and so on in it. I always like that because these sorts of things are where the designer is kind of giving you the taste of, well, how they wanted their game to be played. Obviously as world creators, we designers, we are not narrators. We are essentially creating backgrounds. We are making settings in which other people will tell stories with characters, but we do not dictate the stories. We merely give you the tools to tell them. When a book has adventures like this in it, is showing you how that designer hoped you would use the tools that they've given you. So I like that. So look, overall, this is a really nice piece of modern OSR game design. It takes some of the basic ideas, D20 rolls, characteristics rolled on 3D6 and so on, but uses them in a different way. So it's made its own game. It hasn't just shamelessly copied Dungeons and Dragons. So, it is innovative, but it's not going to break your brain with overly complicated game mechanics. It does exactly what it intends to. The magic mechanics are, as you would expect for a game about witches, very well done. The cauldron sharing, the group manner idea, is a really good one because it can cause group friction, but it's there to kind of cause group cooperation. There is a sense of pressure in the game, so that during combat and so on, they have said you should have a very limited time to say what your character is doing. The pressure's on. You've got like 10 seconds to say what your character is doing. It doesn't use elaborate initiative rules and so on. The situation will kind of tell you which bunch are rolling first and which bunch are coming second. The organ harvesting idea and everything, look, to be really honest, this kind of thing really is incredibly prevalent in many different magic systems. Amazonian native magics, Western witchcraft magics, pagan magics within Europe. It's a very common thing. So this is well done. This really is evocatively thematic. It makes for sort of a ooky, horrible game. On the other hand, you're only harvesting organs from someone that's been, slaughtering peasants and, burned your grandmother at the stake because she whistled on a Tuesday. So there is a sense of justice in it. I find this interesting as a product of 2025, where a dark world is closing in on so many people, and particularly in the queer communities, you'll find a lot of, and sort of neurodiverse communities, you do find a lot of people who are very pagan oriented, and there's obviously a strong pagan community within the role-playing community, yeah, I can kind of see how this game is sort of tapping into those interests and those passions to kind of tell a tale of fighting back against the man. Like I said, the artwork is interesting. It's the page layouts are good, but use some geometric shapes and some very striking black and white art. There's different ways you could have gone on the artwork, like booby sultry witch, like sitting on top of a pile of skulls, does in fact exist in this as a picture. We would kind of expect it, but it's not the kind of thing you'd find in an old D&D manual, and it's not the sort of thing Frazetta would do. It's like, you look at this person and it's like, yeah, definitely harvesting oligarch organs in order to fuel their revolution. So look, Mr. Snoots was somewhat alarmed when this thing first turned up. I was like, what the smecking hell is this? Who the hell is this for? Who's playing this about chopping people bloody hands off and then smashing their brains into a paste to smear your sword? after a moment of calm reflection and some more tea and having a nice lie down, I can see where it's coming from and I can see what it's doing. So, on the very practical levels, as a designer, hail and salute, this is a great piece of work. I can see a group enjoying this as sort of a one-off grungy thing. I can also see a group of people enjoying a campaign of this. So those are kind of the two different ways we use games, and I can see this being used quite happily for both. It's a nice piece of work. Like I said, the game design, it's excellent, but the way it is written and presented to you in the game, it does assume that you know about role-playing game mechanics and so forth. Yeah, it's not a game for beginners, and you wouldn't expect it to be. As you look at it, it's like, yeah, this is definitely not something you sling at a bunch of new players, because it's asking a lot more of you than simply, yeah, I'm a dwarven warrior. So this is an interesting piece of modern game design. Like I said, hats off to the designer. Thank you very much for sending it in, and it's worth a look. It's worth having a copy of this because of its design and so on. If you're a collector, I would say it's worth having a hard copy of this because of the layout design, and if you're going to play it, I would really recommend the hard copy because of that little mechanic about rolling in the spine of the book on the organ distribution pages and those sorts of things. Yeah, so yeah, get it as a collector. And if you're looking for something kind of ooky and challenging and something that's going to like make people really sink back and play a completely different game, yeah, worth getting if you're an umpire or a player. Anyway, Mr. Snoots and I will continue surviving the winter, and we will hopefully see you around the games table sometime soon. Look after yourselves out there. It's a dangerous time to be around, but on the positive side, you could always harvest someone's organs and cast a spell. You can't have any of mine. Those aren't scheduled to go quite yet. Anyway, bye!